with that being said, you've talked about, you had this break, right? You had this experience. It was difficult, emotional, challenging. You confronted it, right? You confronted it, and you are sort of going through it right now, learning things, understanding how that you've recognized that your ego is something that you're contending with, that you really need to address, and that you need to have that focus in the things that you do. That I need to check my ego when I'm doing this. What's my intention? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? Are my words? It's almost like a basic, I see this like on social media and things like that, where people say, watch your words, because you can put them out there, but you can't take them back. They're whatever. And it's like, you can hurt people by saying the things that you say. No,
it's people are going to be hurt by things that you say regardless.
Right.
It's the intent.
That's what I'm saying.
You're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that, so when you say it, why are you saying this? You know what I mean? You might be saying it because you need to defend yourself, or you need to stand up for something that you believe in, or you're standing up for something else, right? But the delivery says a lot. That's number one. And I think the way that you say it and what your intention is behind it, if you're doing it to just get somebody back, and I'm going to tell this person off with an educated tell off or whatever, like, what's the point? The point that I'm learning, right, in all this stuff is just the interconnectedness of it all, right? Like actions, and we don't see it, but actions and words, and not so much in the words, the way that we say it, the purpose as to why we say it, because a lot of people say things out of spite, like you said, not for, I've been told, like I said before, oh, you talk too much. Like, what will be the point of saying something like that? Well, it's just to be spiteful.
Right. So
the person that said that to you was being spiteful,
but
because
again,
they just didn't want to hear you talk.
So but the question is like, you could say that to someone, because again, I admit, okay, I could talk a lot. I do talk a lot, but you could say, hey, listen, we got 15 minutes. We have to make sure that you keep it, succinct.
Like wrap it up, B.
What you have to, you could say a lot of things, and you say a lot of things, but please make sure that you are succinct.
But what you're saying,
in a way, so
to be succinct here is what you're saying though, is when we say things, what is it?
So the intent will be, like in those two scenarios. Number one intent will be to put the other person down there. They are beneath you.
Okay.
And they're inferior to you. Right?
Which is a typical delivery.
Which is a delivery that is very consistent.
Yeah.
Or the other one is to be like, listen, you got capabilities, you got talent, but we need to make sure that you know your audience and you understand exactly where you are.
Yeah.
From a personal perspective, from what I'm going through, it's being able to understand that this stuff happened. Number one. Number two, which is really, really hard to do, and I think our world needs this more than ever. It's to be able to forgive, not to forget, and not to be cautious when you come around those same individuals, but to forgive. Because one of the things that you start learning as you go along is that things happen, and bad things happen to all of us in many different aspects. But if you're constantly looking for your pound of flesh, and you're constantly, not forgiving, then that becomes problematic. And to you.
Right. Because what you're saying here is that was your emotional state.
Yeah.
Or that's your emotional state off and on lately that you still are confronting.
Yeah. And I had to deal. I mean, I did some exercises as to, like, I try to talk to some people. Fine, no response. Okay, no harm, no foul.
So you reached out to people.
I did. I wrote things down, and I just crumpled it, and I just said, you know what, in my own crazy ass self, you know what, let me just get it out of my soul. Okay,
so you're answering a couple questions that I want to sort of wrap this up with, and so let me stop you here. So for you're on this quest, you're still learning, as we've always said, we're all constantly learning things and developing and adjusting and things like that, right? So you are experiencing these emotional things. It's been, a few months since you left that job. And so I can understand that there might still be a little bit of emotional attachment there, so to speak, but you're working through it. So what would you say to the person that, not everybody's situation is the same. So what are the similarities? Because that's what we talk about on A Soul's Quest, are the similarities that we share. What is it? What do you do now? What does somebody do? Because you've shared a couple of things that you're doing personally, but what are the things that people can do in general to sort of navigate that challenge, or these types of challenges of being in, we talk about seclusion and being, alone, and taking the opportunities to use that time to evaluate ourselves and think on our, talk to me about that.
So like my recommendation is,
or what's working for you, for them. Yeah.
So like one of the things that I'm doing is, because a situation like this, when you are attached to something for so long, either a relationship, either work, or the things that we do, it challenges your self of identity,
right?
Like who you are as a person,
right?
And when you're challenged with that, where do you go from there? Because if you feel like you're something, and that because because of this and that and the other, and that XYZ, it's gone, and you're no longer that, then what are you?
Right.
So you have to be able to be introspective enough and really answer that question: who am I? Besides my race, my gender, what I do for a living, my types of relationships. Am I a mother? Am I a father? Am I a son? Am I a daughter? Am I this? Am I that? If all those things are not there anymore, then what are you? You have to answer that question. And you have to really dig deep as to see exactly what is that identity of yourself.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I've done, and I could tell, there's exercise, you could meditate and ask that question. You could begin to read and look at how people define themselves in the midst of all that. Because I love that line from,
a rap song?
No, of Cat Stevens, right? Father and Son.
Oh.
He says, because you may still be here tomorrow, but your dreams may not, right?
Oh.
So if you are here, but all this stuff that gave you the identity of who you were, it's no longer there, then what are you?
Right.
Now, that's a question that I've been answering for myself. So then people have to answer that.
Right.
Number one. Number two is, once you begin to get an idea on what that identity looks like, because it's hard, because you're going to say, well, I'm this, I'm, what, if you don't have those categories to define you, again, I go back to that, but if you don't have those categories to define you, then what are you?
Right.
That is a dark, lonely place to be. Right?
Yeah. So
what I did is I meditated a lot. I'm reading a lot of stuff to find my identity, and find that identity that goes beyond what I do or the role that I play.
Okay.
Right?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
I'll ask you after.
The other thing that you do, it's really for me, and this is just personally, I like to read, I like to watch movies that really make sense and stuff. I like to explore religious, spiritual concepts and things of that nature that are going to give me like a framework to work to, number one, identify myself, but also to give myself a roadmap as to this is what I would like to do.
And there's no one that's better than the other. It's just
no. You have to find out for yourself. But
this
is the problem that I have with a lot of religions that say that this is the way to. No, it's like the way to whatever. This is it. Yeah. It's like it's got to be your way. It's like you have to identify your way. And that is another thing that's hard. It's like I said before, it's like Joseph Campbell says it, and it's the same thing. Knights of the Round Table, you gotta pick your spot to go into that forest. You can't follow anybody else to find out that ultimate thing, the higher self, the God particle, that thing that you are, the essence of who you are. And that journey is the quest. That is the quest to that identity. And once you get to a point in which I've luckily got there and we're doing this, then you begin to take action. Mm-hmm. The part now that I'm in is I'm taking action. We're doing this. We're recording. We're putting stuff out there. Is somehow, which is really, really hard, it's learn to let go and not have an attachment to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the tricky part.
That's what I struggle with right now, because